exactly. I
All
feel
right,
like I'm
let's get
missing out.
started. This is the second Elite 100 Syndicate meeting, and I just want to move the ball, right? We want to take some actionable items. It sounds like we have the right people. We've kind of honed in on, obviously, large multifamily complexes where there's buy and fix and hold, to buy and fix and flip. We honed in on at some point doing storage facilities. I think a lot of people had a high interest in storage facilities. I actually know some experts that are not in the Elite 100 yet that do that stuff. So we can tap into that. And I had a connection today. Some of you mentioned assisted living facilities. Kevin, your business partner there, Serena, she's looking at some big deals and she knows how to run those things. So we now have a assisted living facilities operations expert, so that if we want to get into that space, we have the expertise to run it, because those things are heavily based on the operations and less about the real estate.
Brian, may I suggest you to ask Serena to give a hot seat at the retreat? She's very shy and private.
Yeah, not at the retreat because she's not a member. She's a guest right now. She's in the inner circle. I think she's going to come up into the Elite 100, but she's an inner circle that we allow. But they just kind of flies in the walls. She's going to do a hot seat in the inner circle too. We'll get her.
Okay.
Well, let's stick to this. So, the next steps in my eyes are to, whoever's interested, throw a little bit of money into a bank account. Now, I've never formed a syndicate myself. Chris Johnson's not here. Is anybody else? Kevin, you probably have, right?
Yeah. The multifamily syndications, yeah.
So when you're working, do you form an LLC? What is the structure?
It's a file 6. I think it's a 501c or a B. B is the difference there is you can actually solicit publicly if it's a 501c.
Oh, okay. So it's just like I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a fund, and then you can only have up to 35
506 B and C.
Yeah.
506 B and C. Okay. So Michael, there you go. Yeah. Well, yeah, why don't you school us on, if we're gonna do this first deal, everybody agreed to do a syndicate, do a one-off deal, get our feet wet. So I think the next step is to form the structure, open a bank account, throw a little bit of money in there so we can start doing whatever start assessing a deal and looking towards doing a deal. Does that sound about right, guys? Like I said, I haven't, this is why I put you guys. Yeah. Okay. So it's a 506B.
506B or C. C is mainly it's public offering, and they're all accredited investors. Whereas
we're not going to be going to the public.
It's so sophisticated, and it's a mixture of sophisticated and accredited investors.
Yeah, we would do the smaller, non-public, everybody here is accredited, so.
Yeah. Tyler has a question.
Tyler?
More of a, I didn't want to just like jump in. So I think probably the easiest thing would be to just do an LLC and then have a partnership agreement where whoever's in the deal, it just outlines how much we each own. If it's not open to public, we don't have to go crazy and do a fund structure. Just do a general LLC. If there's 5 people in the LLC, you could probably just do a partnership agreement where we each get X amount. It's outlined there, and then it just runs through that one LLC. Open a bank account, run all the expenses through it. You know what I mean? I don't think we have to overcomplicate it. So I think that would probably be the best way to do it, unless somebody else has a better suggestion.
So I guess I would lean on Michael Shine here, being the lawyer, the real estate lawyer. Michael, is that accurate? Is LLC easier?
It's easier. It just depends on if we're having other people being passive investors and throwing in 100K for us. Right? Yeah. That's the tricky part.
Yeah, we're going to have probably, I would say, most of the people in the Elite 100 that are investing will be completely passive. There'll be, whatever, 5, 7, I don't know how many people ever want to like run the deal. Maybe even 3, I don't know. Figure out who's going to run the first deal, like actually running it. And then everybody else will be passive. So is that a factor?
Yeah, you would want to do a syndication if that's the case.
Not an
So, I mean,
LLC?
it's not that expensive. No, I mean, you could do an LLC for the general partnership. I mean, really, Chris is more the guy to talk about this, but that's normally how you do it if you have passive investors, so you don't get into trouble with the SEC.
All right, so it'll either be that or I'll ask Chris.
So it's just a
Yeah.
506B, and it costs like, I think like 15 grand.
15 grand to set it up. So, all right, so I'll run that by Chris Johnson because, obviously what we want to do, if we're just going to do a one-off deal, we want to minimize business structure costs. That's what I'm thinking. So I'll get with Chris on that.
Yeah. I agree. I didn't know if it was only going to be the people that are in this call right now.
In the beginning, I think.
No, Tyler, it'll be open to the whole group. So there's upwards of 25 people that could be investing in this. This group here are the ones, you guys are the experts in real estate itself. Some of the other ones are tech CEOs and they don't, I reached out to you guys because you're all in real estate heavily. And you don't want 30 people trying to make decisions, and most of the group, they just want to throw money in. That's what they want to do. They're not experts, but they want to play in the game. So the thinking was that you'd have a core, 5 or 6 people running this thing, even when it turns into a fund, right? You just have some core people managing it, vetting deals, and getting paid for their time and whatever their expertise is. And then the rest of the Elite 100, especially as we grow to 40, 50, 60, 100 people, we can have some big deals going on, but most everybody be passive. So we do have to figure that out.
Yeah, syndication structure is definitely the way to go if there's gonna be passive investors. With
Okay.
a management entity and then a passive entity that holds the LLC. If it was just us, 100%. Just a partnership agreement.
Okay. So if that's the case, and I don't know, we have somewhere between 10 and 25 people that want to invest, I'll ping the group or present the deal, figure out, I don't know if we'll have, Tyler, if we want to do that one deal, we can take a little vote here.
I mean, I honestly have 4 deals right now lined up that I'm going to buy regardless. You know what I mean? So I could probably put something together and see if anybody wants to come in on any of those.
Okay. So probably after this meeting here,
That's a good idea.
we'll get a time to look at all 4 of those together with this group. We'll pick one, unless somebody else has, opposes this. But for me, it's like, let's get into a deal. Let's get our feet wet. Let's see how we work together.
Agreed.
So we can maybe we can meet sometime next week after hours or something. Look at the 4 deals, or if not, we'll jump on a separate Zoom. But I can present this to the group, and whoever's interested, if they each throw in $1,000, if we have 20 grand in an account, and the legal structure costs 10 or 15, have some bucks in there, so we're not, no one entity's coming out of pocket. I think that's the way to do that. And then we form the structure, we fund it, and go for the loan and acquire it. Is there anything I'm missing? Because this is where I need you guys' expertise. Anything that we're missing here?
No, Brian, sorry, I'm driving, so I can't press. The only, not problem, but a caveat on this is who's gonna be on the loan and the exposure, how are we gonna compensate the exposure of the loan? Meaning if, let's just say for argument's sake, it's you and I. Well, we're taking the entire risk of the loan, or whoever is on the loan. It's got to be. We got to find a formula to have them compensate a little differently than Joe Schmo was putting in $100 grand and getting a similar share.
That is a very good point that I would not have thought of, and that's exactly what I'm looking for here. So
in my partnerships in the past, Brian, in the beginning, I took on all the responsibility and I didn't get compensated for it. But now I don't do any partnerships anymore. But the last partnership I did get an additional percentage or 2 or 5, whatever, for taking on the risk.
yeah.
Yeah, it's called the key principle. usually they sign on the loans, but all of us would also want to be on the loans as well to get credit for, pretty much get additional multifamily credit under our belts, especially if it moved into an agency debt. Our last KP, we gave them 10% of the general partnership. So
So
it's
that's what I
usually
was, that's what I was thinking. If we did there'd be a general, the GPs would probably all come together with half a dozen people and share the risk of the note. Is that, and then the LPs would just make a little bit, they'd make less because they're just literally taking not much, well, no risk, right? I guess. I don't know.
What do you guys want to offer to the LPs? Like, how do you want to structure it do you guys want to do, a preferred return? And then what do you guys want to do for the split?
I think we need to look at the deal. You mean the split between?
So Tyler, what I see in the multifamily space, I don't know if you know Brad Sunrock, he structures it 70-30, 70 to the LP and 30 to the sponsorship team. And then usually it's like there's no really prefer, but we can have a prefer if it's like under, I don't know, more than 100,000 or 150,000. We'll guarantee a prefer of 8%, or it's just gonna be like a typical cash on cash, whatever the property generates.
I
Yeah,
think
that
the
makes
latter
sense.
would make more sense.
So there's gonna be tier, like if you're putting 100,000, there's no prefer, but or a prefer of 7%, and you put in 200, it's gonna be 8% or 9%, something like that.
Yeah, ours are normally, the ones I'm LP in is 70-30 with 7 to 9% preferred return.
So how does that, when you say 70-30, that's a split on the profits?
Yeah, so the
Ownership and profit.
LPs get 70% and the GPs get 30%, but the
That-
LPs get their 7 to 9% before the GPs get anything.
So that seems weird to me from a math point of view, because if we have 3 GPs, it's one thing. If there's 5, it's another. If there's 7, it's another. So the ratio of people, I don't see how you could do. I think we're gonna have to come up with a different structure. It should be.
Well, I think it comes down to like the performance of the deal, right? Because the point of it is just saying, okay, well, you're going to get 8%, 7% preferred return before us as a GP make any money. Now, obviously, if we're doing our job, right, we're going to make significantly more than 8%, and anything over that 8% would be split 70-30.
Yep.
What other way would you structure it?
Well, that's what I'm trying to hammer out, right? It's like,
Structures, there's an acquisition fee. If it's a smaller deal, usually the acquisition fee is 1 to 2%, maybe up to 3%. There's an asset management fee, so you're paid for ongoing activities to manage the deal, and then there's the profit share on the back end. So on a refinance or sale, that's where the general partnership makes the bulk of the compensation for performance of the deal doing well. That way there's alignment of interest. Pref returns vary. So if we're going to do like heavy construction, like we're gutting the place, we can't offer a preferred return because there's no cash flow.
well,
If it's already stabilized.
The deals that are on the table are not at all heavy construction, and the deals that are on the table now, the thing that's nice about them, in my point of view, is like, Tyler already vetted it. He's got the people, the management, like it's an A to Z done by his team. And, as we go forward, we'll build bigger teams, different parts of the country, different people managing different things. But these first ones, it's almost like turnkey deals, right? It's more a matter of, getting our feet wet together and structuring a deal and going through it. And, Tyler, that one you were talking about, 60 units with another 60, that one's more of a buy and hold, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so both of the deals you could go in and stabilize and sell. So I have 3 deals, 2 of which are pretty turnkey assets. You're really just going in there, making minor cosmetic upgrades and just raising the rents. Both of them are like long-term landlords. They've owned them from like 20, 30 years, right? And they've done a really great job taking care of the asset. The in-place income on it is like significantly lower than where it should be. So that's one deal, or those are two deals. And then my third deal that I have is 18 units, and that's definitely like a heavier rehab. But you know, that's that deal. I'm going in. It's 62 per door purchase price. You know, I'm budgeting 20K per unit, and then it should be worth like 135 a door when it's done. So, you know, it's just a matter of which one we kind of prefer to do, you know.
Even
Yeah.
in that situation, if it's a cosmetic turn, you still have to turn over the unit, right? And
Yeah.
if it's significantly below market rents, the cash flows are significantly below a preferred return. So, I mean, it's really just the math in the back end. I'm only explaining this because I just went through a syndication. We turned over 40 units. The cash flows dropped because we literally turned over every single unit, even though they were relatively light work. We bumped up the units by about 450 per, but that does impact cash flows, and the terms that we offer to investors should reflect like what our cash flow is going to be, because we don't want to raise money and then pay them out of the money that we raised. It just ends up creating a little bit of could create a cash crunch.
Well, I think the unique situation here is that everybody know, likes, and trusts. There's no strangers. There's no outside. So there's a little bit of uniqueness here. We're gonna just, you know, at least this first one will be completely internal to the Elite 100. Not that it's still going to be legally structured correctly, but my point is we can get a little creative compared to like, oh, it's going out to the public. You need to do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. So if we were going to do the one that's more of a buy and hold, that would be a strategy where it's like everybody kicks in 100 grand, whatever. We raise, you know, a couple of million, finance the rest, you know, recondition it, get it all rented. Then the thing's cash flow on monthly, and then there's going to be monthly or quarterly distributions until it sells, right? And then from there, it would be like, you know, GPs would get a higher percentage, I guess, right? And whoever did extra work, so the percentages would change on the 100K. So I guess we really got to figure out if we want to buy and hold or buy and flip the first one. And Tyler, go ahead.
Brian,
Oh,
That was my question.
Yeah.
That was my question. Would you guys rather buy, stabilize, and hold, or buy, stabilize, and sell? Is there any preference?
it all depends on numbers.
It depends on the
It depends
numbers,
on-
but yeah, the one that you were talking about buying and holding was generating, I think it would generate like 400 grand a year in cash. Like that'd be a good foundational thing to get
For
some
sure.
cash flowing, you know, to cover bullshit expenses, just to have cash flow, right? Good cash
Yeah,
flow.
and you'd also have probably about $4 million worth of equity built into the
Right.
deal.
That's what I'm saying too. You pull money out that way. So my thinking would be that, but again, I'm not the expert here, so we need kind of a majority consensus, and I guess it's going to depend on the deal.
Yeah, that's fair.
Brian, in my opinion, we should obviously the 400,000 a year or whatever, it sounds great and very enticing, but if I were to start with a new group, we should really have a simple or easy, even it could be small, return wise also small, project, just to get our feet wet, know each other, know each other's weaknesses, know each other's strength, and maybe I should not be in this group, for example. Maybe I'm a wild horse that doesn't belong in this group, for example. So we gotta get that worked out, and we don't want to work it out on a $200 million deal. We want to work it out on a 2 to 5 or whatever $1 million deal.
Yeah, well, that's
My
what this
opinion.
is. Yeah, no, 100%. This one, this is not, you know, the deal he has on the table. It's
Yeah, right now it's a $7.4 million purchase price. Trying to lock that in. So
Okay, so we need at least $2 million down payment, if not a little more.
so it
Yeah, we'll need
depends on
about
what kind of
3.5,
it
4
depends on
million.
what kind of it depends on what kind of debt you go in with. Because if we're going in with bridge debt, I can probably get it with only 15% down. If you want to go the long-term route, then you know we probably would have to put down closer to that 20-25%.
My opinion on that would be if we get if, because there's some rehab to be done, right? And stabilization and increasing of
I
rents.
mean, minimal, right? So it was built in, I think it was 2000 or like 1995. So it's relatively like newer. So like the
Okay.
cosmetic upgrades that you would do to the units really would just be like paint, countertops, appliances. If you want to paint the cabinets, right, you could. I would when I ran through it, I was thinking like 7,000, 7,500 a unit. You probably do a pretty nice turn on it.
Okay. Well,
So I think two things from here. I think it's a matter of establishing the GPs, and establishing the entity. I think it's going to be a syndicate from what I'm hearing, and then we could reach out to the Elite 100, present it, see who wants in. Whoever wants in, if it's 15 or 20 people, they each throw in $1,000. We create the syndicate, and then they commit with, their capital behind that.
Brian, I have a question, my friend.
Yeah.
What is the target that you're looking for? What is the cap rate target?
So you missed the last meeting. I don't know if you saw the replay. Tyler went
No,
through
not yet.
Yeah, he went through a whole spreadsheet. So Tyler, I don't know if you know the initial and the final cap rate. You probably do, but
So my goal on most of the deals is enter at a 7 and stabilize to a 10 or higher. That's like
Okay.
my general ideal buy box. And that's kind of where I've been buying.
Okay, so my portfolio right now is at 67 million with 12.7%. But that 12.7%, it comes down from a 16% that is developed across 32 states. And it comes down to lower because it's the average. But we have portfolios that are producing 16 and we have portfolios that are producing 10, whatever. So the average is 12.7%, and the whole operation is established for 11 years.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And listen, I have deals that, I have running at 16%, 15% too. I just think that if it fits that initial box, then it's worth considering, right? And then from there, if we want to dive deeper, then it's like, great. If someone sends me a 5 cap stabilizing at a 7, it's like, there's not any meat there, right? So for example, like if we're looking to source deals and you're talking to brokers or anybody, like that would probably be enter at a 7, stabilize at a 10 or higher. Obviously the goal would be higher, right? But I think that would just limit people from sending us a bunch of garbage that doesn't really have much upside.
That's right. Yeah, and I will, maybe, Brian, what we can do is get my CEO in that company to come and explain in detail also, so they can have an idea of how that works, and just be able to see if it's possible for the syndicate as a group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ivan, you should definitely catch up on that. We went pretty extensive last time into a couple of deals that were very, very well vetted, like some what I call like a light lift. They weren't like big gut jobs, big rehabs, pretty turnkey, pretty safe numbers, not too
Great location.
Great location, yeah. Right near the
right by the beach.
Yeah, right near the couple.
It's right by the beach. It's Long Island Sound, and it's no flood zone, which is great.
And the thing I liked about that one, guys, is it's like it had very good potential to buy and hold and rent or sell. And I wouldn't ever want to get into something you're guaranteed, like I have to sell this and it's not that rentable. Like I think everything should always have a exit plan of you could rent it, Airbnb it, like what's the plan B and C. So that was the reason why that one, and it was cash flowing like 400 grand a year. And had another lot that you could build another 60 units on.
Yeah.
It was really, I thought it was just a beautiful and starting point. But again, it's got to be a consensus here, but that's what I'm thinking. So but I think we got to take the next step, right? We all enough of us want to do it. I know the group wants it, wants to do it. I think it's a matter of polling the group, seeing who would like to be in, and then each person throwing $1,000 in an account. We get like 20 grand. Form the syndicate, get a bank account for the syndicate, because there'll be a little bit of trust there for a minute into somebody's personal account, or a business account, but that's the beauty of this group. We already know, love, and trust each other. So, does that sound right though? The steps for the next things, guys?
That'll be fine.
My goal was to actually pitch this at the event live, and maybe I'll bring a bunch of you up on a panel. We'll talk about it, and then we'll gauge interest, and right there and then we'll get who wants in, because I know a lot of people want to jump in, and then we'll know for sure. And then from that meeting, we can, figure out who wants to be GPs, what the roles are, and then do the math, lay out all the math, because we'll know the players. Tyler?
Is anyone opposed to starting in Connecticut?
No, I'm not.
No.
Okay. So I think for me, obviously if it's in Connecticut, I can handle, the management, the construction, the leasing, the stabilization, all that stuff. So I think if we are going to start in Connecticut, we would just kind of have to outline, what everyone else would be doing, right? If we're going to a different market, my probably main thing would be sourcing it, right? I probably wouldn't be able to really facilitate it that much. But I think we should figure out okay, if we're going to start in Connecticut, right, what would that look like?
I agree. Yeah. Agreed. And I know, like you said, on the deal you brought up, I think you had all those numbers, right?
For what?
Well, you silo your companies, right? Like your management company, it's different companies. So you're literally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they're siloed as if you're working for a stranger.
Exactly.
So
yeah, everything's separate.
Yeah. So I think that would be the thing to do is look at that deal and figure out which divisions, would be getting what income out of the deal for rehab and for leasing out and things of that nature. And like I said, the beautiful thing about this is everybody that is not an expert like myself is going to learn all these parts and pieces and things so that we can then build teams, right? We can go into Florida and we can find local talent and, have people here do whatever part they're going to do, but we can start to build teams. But I'm not a fan of going into an unknown, like a territory where none of us are there and building a team. I'd rather go where one of you is, and you get it all dialed in. We get our feet wet. We get some cash flow. We get some equity. That property there, you can pull equity back out, do another deal. It seems like a pretty good one.
Yeah, that
Hey,
one's
Tyler,
kind of a
how big is your
no-brainer.
property management team?
So I have an in-house property manager that's on full-time salary. I have a full-time leasing agent. I have a full-time project manager, and I have a full-time maintenance guy. I currently have interviews for a second property manager. Not that we need it, but knowing kind of where we're going, we're kind of lining that up. And we're also probably going to start looking for a second full-time maintenance tech. So 5 people, right? And then obviously me and my COO oversee all of them.
Okay. For lenders, they typically are looking for high level experience in the space, right? They're gonna be like, hey, who's your property manager and how long have they been operating these types of assets for? So it's just something to keep in mind that they typically want, organizations that are a little bit beefed up to be able to onboard a 40-unit building, hypothetically, because
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So right now I actually have about 200 units that my team currently manages, and I already have, a bunch of lenders that I've done deals with, right, that are happy to lend, right? I have one right now. He's willing to I have a 31 unit and he's willing to go in on a 10-year no IO at 7.3%, right? And a lot of the companies that I'm a lot of the lenders I'm already working with have already vetted me and my company. So if we were to push it through them, it wouldn't be an issue. Obviously, if we're going through an agency lender or a different lender, that would be a different story. And to your point, I think it would make sense to have it a little more beefed up.
Okay.
What other questions, concerns, or what else am I missing here, guys?
To our Ara's point earlier, we do need to outline roles and responsibilities of the general partnership. That should be very clearly defined
Yeah.
in terms of like, hey, you brought the deal to the table, you get this percentage. You raise the money for the deal, you get this percentage. You're operating the deal, you get this percentage. That way people are like, it's clear cut. It's not
Yeah, it's numbers. I
vague.
agree 100%. 100%.
Yeah, and it keeps things objective in terms of, hey, I did my job for this particular project and it works out well. Because there's a bunch of chefs in this kitchen, and sometimes somebody's going to be carrying the brunt load. Like if it's done in Connecticut, obviously Tyler, like he's operating in the market, that makes sense for him to handle the majority of things going on. But if we're to go into Florida, like there is a certain point where it's managing managers
Yes.
or managing subcontractors, you know, and being a steward of investors' capital. Because once we go into this space, like, you know, there's people's money online, and no matter how much you like somebody, if anybody feels like their money's not protected, then you just don't want to, you know, create any problems and issues
Oh,
and
agreed.
drama.
Agreed
Very
100%.
true.
Yeah. So I mean, this first one, obviously, you know, it's going to take a little bit to wind it up because we got to figure out all these pieces. And so Tyler, are you able to take a stab at, how do I want to say this? We need somebody or some couple of people to identify all the possible roles that are going to be needed to be filled, right? Some of the ones you just mentioned. And then which ones are filled, which ones are not, and what the percentages should be. But I don't think we want 7 or 8 of us doing it. I think we want like 2 people that are skilled, like, or 2 or 3 people, maybe, you know, whoever, Kevin, Tyler, and Ara, or Ivan. I don't know if you have time to do any of this stuff. I know you know, your company's global, so you guys are doing hundreds of deals, and I don't know how much involvement you want, but obviously you carry the expertise to jump in here too, you know.
Of course, and don't forget that I have a team on the ground in 32 states. So, but it's all through, you know, I have 9 CEOs. This is just one operation. And then there is another CEO that I am putting together, because what he's doing is that this 70 million operation that is growing at around 5 million a month approximately. So what he's doing is he's taking the 70 million operation and he's building a REIT.
Okay.
And he's flipping the 70 million and getting all the liquidity and restarting. So the investors are getting the liquidity and growing. And the whole idea is to access into a deal, flip the deal at around 20% in a year or something like that, and then go again and go again and go again. So I put a different CEO for that.
Yeah. Now these, you know, you have representation in 32 states, but would we be able to use, you know, those teams in what we're doing here, or are they part of their own company?
Yes, so they are part of the company. So that's the thing. But I can get referrals of connections, things like that. I have some ideas on that. You know, when you need, let's do, Brian, like when you need my expertise on the project, you just shoot me an email or something, or Tyler can shoot me an email, and I will look into my resources and just connect them.
Yeah.
So the program can become,
I guess it's going to happen. Like, let's say if we do a deal in Florida, and I know Florida is a very highly sought after state, we're not going to have all the pieces. We're going to have to get some local talent for construction management, construction, leasing out, probably a few things, and the property management. We won't have our own property management company. Maybe you do, I'm not sure. But if we don't, then we need to have the talent here to at least source and manage the managers on the deal. And that's going to be more of the, you know, like Kevin was talking about. That's going to be more of more labor intensive on some people's parts.
That's right.
Brian, I think if we get the basics, like Kevin said, the basic, absolute basic structure on paper, the rest will fall in place. Whenever we need something in any state, we'll go find it. And I mean, we're not the pioneers in this. Everybody else has been doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think we gotta get off our pot and jump into a deal that makes sense. Let's first, in the next few days, come up with a structure, with a basic structure, then present the deal to the people and go. Now, in the interim, it would Ivan's help or others' help. We can determine the final legal structure of this, but we have time for that. That's what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
I think
Let's
Chris
get it
will
rolling.
know. Chris Johnson will know right off the bat. I think it's going to be a syndicate. That's what Kevin was saying, leaning towards, because of what we're doing, because we have a bunch of people that are passive. I think it has to be a syndicate. But we'll
Brian, I have two deals that I'm in that are simple LLCs that I have. One of them have four passive investors and two active GPs.
okay.
And the other deal is one myself and five other investors who are just passive.
And they're
So
LLCs.
and they're LLCs. But
All right. Well,
again, this is what my lawyer said. And every lawyer is going to tell you something different. So
yeah. Well, I know I've
Brian,
been experiencing that too.
I have a question. Tyler, do you remember what is the not the cap rate, but the cash on cash on the deals? Oh, Tyler is mute, right?
He's
Yes.
driving, so he might be like in a
Do
traffic
you
jam.
remember, Brian? Do you remember the cash on cash? Because he told me cap rate, I start at 7 to go to 11, 12. But I am interested to know the cash on cash, you know?
Yeah, he has that for sure.
Of course.
Yeah, he had a spreadsheet with 50 line items on it that was all every number to the penny. He was very, not his first rodeo. But the
No,
cash on cash was good.
we asked
Yes.
for that spreadsheet to be sent around. Unfortunately, I didn't get it.
Oh, I'll ping him to do that. So I'll get him to send that. I'll get him to send that around today or tomorrow.
At
Yeah,
least to this group.
Yeah.
Just because, Brian, I want to know because this new CEO that I have, he has a lot of investors going off multifamily because of the low cash on cash, basically, and switching to this other model, which is basically getting the investor to be a bank instead of a landlord, and just replicating that and multiplying the whole thing. And he has a lot of investors getting off that through the Real Estate Lenders Association. He's like a very top level guy in the nation and so on. Sure. So I just want to make sure that you guys, because it becomes much more simple and has much more less risk than the other space. But it's just another option that you should analyze for the syndicate. So you can do, okay, we do 10 million on multifamily and we do 10 million on lending, and we do this, and it's a whole different level for the investors, you see?
So I think I like what you're saying, but I want to keep in mind this too. With the Elite 100, it's different than a bunch of strangers investing. So, and here's what I would say with it. As we build this thing, we're going to have deals that are Elite 100. As we build capital, the Elite 100 syndicate might start lending to strangers.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But within the Elite 100, I don't think we would do that. It would be a syndicate, because we're going to want to, they're going to want to they'll take more risk and get higher returns. Nobody's going to be thrilled about 8% a year. That they won't do it. Right. They're gonna want to be a part of this fund that we're building. Then eventually we will be able to go outside. And then, but the people inside of the Elite 100 syndicate will be, they'll have more of a lion's share. That's my thinking anyway, guys, is it needs to be looked at a little bit different because of, we all know, like, and trust. There's no strangers here.
I see.
You see? So, and I just think we need the masterminding until we come up with the formula. But, Ara, who's able to take a first stab at percentages and numbers on the syndicate? Is anybody very well versed? Do we need a couple of people?
I think we should be more than two, maybe three people, just to get a odd number. I'll be willing to help.
I mean, my feeling would, just from hearing people, would be you and Kevin Dugan and Tyler. Are you guys willing to take a first a first stab at like a spreadsheet with some top level numbers?
Yeah, no problem. It's
Okay.
fairly straightforward.
All right, I'll put you guys on a three-way test, and don't spend, too much time on it, but let's come up with the first structure so we can get an idea. Because ideally, I'd like to be able to show something at the elite event to get people, interested. There's been a lot of interest, so cool. All right,
Yeah,
I'll follow
long time
up.
coming.
I will follow up and connect you guys, and I'll get with Chris Johnson and we'll talk about the structure a little bit, but it sounds like it still could be either way. I mean, I'm more of a fan of the LLC if we can pull it off just for cost reasons. But I don't know if it's, you're talking 3 or 4 people, we're talking probably 20. We're probably talking 5 GPs and 15 passive. So I don't know
That's
if
why lawyers are lawyers.
that's what lawyers are for. So Chris Johnson will jump in on that. I'll give him this recording. I'll have him watch this and get his opinion. So, all right.
Perfect.
So good second meeting. Like I said, it's going to take a little bit to spin this up, but once we do, we'll be rocking and rolling, and super excited for this. Ara's been bugging me for 2 years about this. So I appreciate
Hey.
you guys, and we'll see you all at the elite retreat.
Perfect.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take
Same
care,
to
everybody.
everybody.
See everybody.